Yeah, hi there. When you talk, you can just look at the camera there. My name is Michael Buckoff. I am the founder, owner, and the materials writer of the 7-Step System to Pass the TOEFL IBT. I'm also a professor here at California State University, San Bernardino. I teach in 2 departments. I teach in the English department here on campus. I typically teach first year composition classes and also expository writing and sometimes linguistics. And I also teach in the English language program here on campus. And this is where I know my student here, Kyo Ho. And I'm going to ask him a few questions. I noticed in my TOEFL preparation course for spring quarter 2016 here, Mr. Lee, he actually had some very organized, independent writing practice tests. So I was very curious to see what he did, how he got his writing to where he did, and so on. So how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Now, the first thing, I want you to talk to my audience a little bit just about your background. You can talk about what types of English classes you took, maybe in elementary, maybe high school, maybe college. So just tell our audience a little bit about your experience with English.
Actually, when I was in Korea, we usually had to take a class, English class, since we were in the elementary school. But this kind of classwork is not about the speaking. We just concentrate on the reading, listening.
Mm-hmm.
So I think most of Koreans are good at reading and listening, but not for the speaking. So,
and sometimes not as much with the writing either. I've noticed, I've taught students from many areas, and your writing skills are a lot better than most Korean students that I meet at California State University, San Bernardino, and also the ones I meet online. Okay, so how many years of English study do you think you had when you were in Korea, approximately?
You mean the anything?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we most of Koreans had to study for 10 years before they graduate high school.
All right.
So we are used to use English, but not for writing or speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
All right. So when we talk about writing, I want to look at a few things. So the essays that I read in my class, Mr. Lee here is pretty much the #1 student. So he was scoring approximately 25 points out of 30 on the independent writing task. So when I was reading his essays, I noticed he typically had a pretty good thesis statement. He had good topic sentences in his body paragraphs, and he had very good control of your language use was pretty good, vocabulary, grammar, and you also had a lot of supporting details. So my question for you is, how do you think, in your opinion, how did you improve your writing? Because as we know, Korean and English grammar is very different, right? So we have 2 very different languages, and the writing systems are even different. So you've been able to master, for the most part, the writing, academic writing in English. So what did you do? How did you do that?
Actually, when I came here first, it was kind of my first time to organize the essay. So my professors they commented on my essay, and I always get the kind of lowest score. So I tried to organize. I tried to connect the sentences clearly, so that the teacher or someone who read my essay can understand what I want to say.
Okay.
So, and then I also try to use the preposition.
Okay.
And that makes the sentence connect smoothly.
So when you say prepositions,
Match.
words like to, over, under, about, those kinds of words?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so from what Mr. Lee is saying, so he actually did writing assignments and he got feedback from his English teachers. And when you were first doing your writing, Mr. Lee, what were some of your issues, do you think? What were some of your major problems? You said that you had some lower scores initially, right?
Yeah.
So what was hard for you when you first started doing writing?
Yeah. I just put the words what comes from my brain,
Mm-hmm.
and but after that I tried to follow the format. I mean there's in the essay there's introduction and body 1, 2 and counter argument.
Okay.
And lastly conclusion. So I try to follow that format.
Okay. And what he's talking about here is he's talking about a template that you can follow when you're organizing the independent speaking task. So let's say that you're given a question that says, some people like to study alone, other people like to study as a group. Which form of study do you think is better? So what you're saying is you have your introduction, which kind of sets up the essay. Then you have your body, paragraph 1 and 2. These are reasons why you think the one method of study is better than the other, right? And then you also, as he says, he includes a counter argument to acknowledge the opposite view. Okay, cool. Now, here's my question here. So, at the conclusion of the video here of talking about TOEFL, what kinds of strategies or advice would you give students, number one, who are preparing for the TOEFL exam and they want to get a good score on the writing section, right? What do you think they should do before? So I'm going to talk about two things right now. What are some good things students can do before they take the TOEFL exam, right? Then my next question, just a minute, it'll be what do you think students can do during the TOEFL exam to try to get that high writing score? So let's talk about the preparation beforehand. What do you think students can do to get ready for the writing section of the TOEFL IBT exam?
I suggest that first before just write essay, start to write essay. I think we have to kind of brainstorming first.
Okay.
How to lead our essay, how to organize our essay, and then we just after we organize what we gonna talk about, and then start to write. And then I think the words are also can be useful for writing essay.
Mhm.
We have to make our expression variety.
Mhm.
I mean, there are the many same meaning.
Mhm.
I mean, many kinds of word which has same meaning.
So you like synonyms?
Yeah, synonyms.
Okay.
Like, for example, there's a word even though and the same meaning even if, although, something like this. So I try to make my expression various.
Good. So I think he's giving a good tip here. He's saying that as you're doing your TOEFL writing or academic writing in general, he's saying use a variety of connecting type words to join the sentences together. So, for example, you don't want to use although all the time, or you don't want to use even though all the time. He's saying that try to use a range of words to help connect ideas together. And what you're saying here, Mr. Lee, that shows that you have pretty good language use, right? You have good vocabulary, good use of transition words, connectors, and those kinds of things. All right, fair enough. Any other general tips you think might be helpful for students? Let's say when they're taking the actual TOEFL exam, what are some best practices, in your opinion, that you think might help them?
Actually, the most important thing is to follow the classworks. That the teachers give us the tip, and then if you stay in another country, that can be very helpful for improving your English.
And he's here from South Korea, so how long have you been in the United States now?
It's about just 5 months.
5 months, okay.
I try to hang out with the foreigners, which is not from my country.
Okay, good.
Even though they are Japanese, Chinese, we just use English so we can improve a lot, both of us.
So what Mr. Lee is saying here is when you're trying to improve your writing and your English in general, he's saying find opportunities to speak English as much as you can. The more fluent you become with the English language, the easier it will be to organize and develop ideas in writing in a new language. All right. So any other last minute tips you have for students?
Just really high focus on when you take the TOEFL, because I already took once and it's kind of long time, so
It takes about 5 hours.
you might feel sleepy or tired, exhausted, but you have to completely concentrate for the whole exam when you take the whole exam.
And I've told a lot of my online TOEFL students, because the TOEFL exam is around 4.5 to 5 hours long, as Mr. Lee is saying, that's a long time to have to concentrate in a new language. So if you're already using the language on a daily basis, it makes it easier to concentrate for that long period of time on there. So one thing I recommend, I tell my students, I don't know if you did this, but I recommend this, is it's not a bad idea before you actually take the TOEFL IBT exam to take a full-length IBT practice test. It's really, really boring. But you actually take a practice test. It takes about 5 hours long. You'll do the reading section, the listening section, the speaking section, and the writing section. You'll go through all of the tests, and then you'll even get it scored by a professionalist. You'll have an IBT speaking specialist grade all 6 of your speaking tasks. You'll have an IBT writing specialist grade both of your writing tasks, and you can get some feedback. So if you do a full-length practice test before the actual TOEFL exam, 3 things are going to happen. 3 basic things. Number 1, you develop the strength and the stamina needed to concentrate in English for longer periods of time. So you kind of get used to doing that. Number 2 is you get more familiar with the format and the structure of the TOEFL IBT exam. A lot of students, they don't know exactly what's going to happen when they take the test. They don't know how each section is organized. So by taking that full-length IBT practice test, they can understand a little bit more about the test. Of course, the third advantage of doing an IBT practice test is you'll have a chance to mark your progress. You can see what your overall score is. You can see what your subtotal scores are in the reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Then you can make a decision if you need to study a little more in one area or the other. The practice test feedback will give you some valuable information there. So those are some things to think about. So thank you, Mr. Lee, for sharing some of your ideas. Good luck. I've enjoyed having you as a student here in our English language program, and the best of luck to you. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right.